And if you're wondering why this subject, well, in recent times, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease has emerged as increasing in incidence and prevalence, and now the most common contributor to chronic liver disease globally. And a lot of people have excess fat in the liver and don't even know. So we need to look at this condition. And in doing so, we will look at the liver in general a little bit as well. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let us pray. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Welcome to everyone. Well, okay, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a term for a range of conditions characterized by a buildup of fat in the liver. Now, normally when you store fat in what we call adipose tissue, fat cells in various parts of the body. For women, it is usually the buttocks and thighs, that is called the gynecoid fat distribution. Men tend to put a lot of their fat in the abdominal visceral area called belly fat or the paunch. And then, of course, when the fat becomes excessive, it can be stored all around. But when fat begins to be stored in the liver, well, then we're looking at a different pathophysiology and different possible outcomes. So first of all, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, it is called non-alcoholic because before 1980, when it was first characterized, fat in the liver had to do mainly with chronic alcohol abuse. So alcohol abuse used to be a main cause of excess fat in the liver, but now, and especially since 1980, and since 1980, a lot of things have changed. The fast food industry has catapulted. Unhealthy eating has become customary in all countries. Obesity has become pandemic. Pre-diabetes and diabetes are all on the increase. Unhealthy eating. And the research has shown that the increase in incidence and prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease have to do with unhealthy eating, obesity, prediabetes, diabetes. And it occurs in adults as well as in children, as we shall see. For example, as I said, it is now the most common cause globally for chronic liver disease. And in America, United States of America, for example, 30 to 40% of adults have some extra fat in the liver, and 10% of children. And that has to do with the American lifestyle, the American way of eating. As I told you some time ago, Professor Malhotra had indicated studies had shown that only 1 in 8 adult Americans, only 1 in 8 is metabolically healthy. 7/8, 83% metabolically unhealthy. Here in the Caribbean and Latin America, it has been shown that the Caribbean and Latin America, although the global prevalence is 25%, it is higher in the Caribbean and Latin America, having to do with our obesity and our diabetes. So there we have it. Now, Another point by way of introduction, although most people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease will not progress to any more serious liver damage, a significant minority will progress to inflammation of the liver, that is then called non-alcoholic steatosis hepatitis. And then that inflammation can cause fibrosis and scarring, so the person can end up with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease causing cirrhosis, liver failure, and an increased risk of liver cancer. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease may remain just that, excess fat in the liver, and not progress to anything more serious in terms of the liver, but it can progress in a small minority to inflammation, non-alcoholic steatosis with hepatitis, inflammation of the liver, and then cirrhosis, fibrosis, and scarring, and destruction of the liver architecture and liver failure, and an increased risk of liver cancer. As a matter of fact, I have a statistic here which is interesting. It says that 42,000 cases of liver cancer were diagnosed in America in 2020, and non-alcoholic liver disease accounted for 14% of that amount. Alcohol, another percentage, and virus hepatitis, another percentage, and certain toxins. As you know, liver cancer is a particularly treacherous and lethal cancer, and anything that contributes to it, we should seek to eliminate or avoid. Before a doctor diagnoses non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, he must rule out alcohol abuse by the person, because if there's alcohol abuse, then alcohol would most likely be the cause of the fatty liver disease. And the doctor must rule out any viral hepatitis. Once viral hepatitis is ruled out and alcohol abuse is ruled out, and there is extra fat in the liver, it is then called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. As I just said, it may progress in a small minority to further liver damage, inflammation, and cirrhosis, liver failure, and liver cancer. But even in the majority in whom it does not progress in terms of liver damage, it is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, if a person doesn't already have diabetes. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is not a nice thing to have. Even if the person is not going to progress to further liver damage, there's an increased risk of cardiovascular problems, high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, and also diabetes type 2. And of course, diabetes type 2 itself increases the risk of a heart attack and chronic kidney damage. And it has been shown that there's an association between non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and chronic kidney disease as well. So, having told you what it is, we want to now examine how non-alcoholic fatty liver disease develops. Well, we've seen when it was first brought to notice in the early 1980s, and then progressive epidemiological studies and research shows an increase in incidence and prevalence, so that now the average global prevalence is 25%, but higher in the Caribbean and Latin America. And researchers link it to unhealthy diet, high sugar diet, and sugars like high fructose corn syrup, which is present in a lot of things. A lot of things you buy and don't read the label, high fructose corn syrup will be in it. So we're going to look at fructose, which is also the other monosaccharide in sucrose. Sucrose is cane sugar, and cane sugar, which is the common sugar we use, is made up of glucose and fructose. Cane sugar is sucrose, and sucrose is made up of glucose and fructose. So there you have fructose. Fructose is fruit sugar as well in most fruits. And then, of course, in high fructose corn syrup, there's a particularly high concentration, high amount too, of fructose. So that is one link there, high sugar, especially high fructose diets, high sugar on the whole, even if there's just a sugar that will yield glucose. So excessive starch intake, especially refined processed starches, refined processed carbs. Then the other link is with obesity. Obesity increases the chances of you putting some fat in your liver. So high sugar intake, whether that sugar be glucose from the digestion of starch or fructose from excessive use of sucrose or high fructose corn syrup in a lot of things people buy, cereals and cookies and so on, and don't read the label. And then it is also associated with unhealthy eating, high fat, high sugar, fast foods with no fiber and no nutrients really. And then mysteriously, it has been seen in some people with none of those risk factors, which means there are other factors that we have to look at and research as time goes on, and they're doing that. So let's look at a little bit of the biochemistry and put it in simple terms. Now, how does the liver get this extra fat? Well, first of all, let's look at glucose and fructose. If you eat a lot of starch, you know that if you're not exercising and burning it up, and of course our bodies are so efficient that you would have to do a lot of exercise if you're eating a lot of starch to make any impact on burning it up. That is why people who depend on exercise alone and don't cut back on calories never lose weight or lose only an insignificant amount. So excess starch, more than you need, is stored as fat. Okay. Now, excess starch, of course, is digested to glucose and absorbed. The glucose comes into the body. The glucose causes an insulin spike from the beta islet cells in the pancreas. And insulin, as you know, is a fat storing hormone. And when there is excessive glucose and your body is storing it, and the excessive glucose also gets to the liver, and there is a lot of insulin around to try to deal with this glucose, the liver will store some of that glucose as glycogen. And glucose, when it is metabolized in the metabolic pathways called glycolysis, eventually gives a product called acetyl coenzyme A, which is a parent molecule from which the liver can make fat, like triglyceride, as what fat is, triglyceride, and cholesterol. So if you have too much glucose around, and therefore too much acetyl coenzyme A, more than you need, and you're trying to store it, and then it is still coming to the liver, is still getting a lot of glucose, this acetyl coenzyme A can be used by the liver to make more triglyceride, more fat. That is one way. When it comes to fructose now, no cells in the body can really metabolize fructose. If you eat an excess amount of fructose, especially if you are already obese, that fructose has to be dealt with only by the liver. The liver cells are the only cells in the body that will metabolize fructose. And it can be channeled into the pathway that deals with glucose, and also other metabolic pathways that will eventually lead to the liver making more triglyceride, more fat. So too much sugar, too much starch, especially refined processed carbohydrates, and too much fructose, the liver is put in a position where it has to find itself converting the end product of the metabolism of these sugars into more triglyceride, more fat, and the liver begins to get fatty. Okay. Other factors involved too, because if there are not enough protective molecules to protect the liver, it is more susceptible to this situation. Okay, so as I said, this phenomenon of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was first recognized in 1980, and now 2021, it has a prevalence of 25% of the global population, and above that average, US, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And since 1998, it has been associated with increasing numbers of hospitalizations in the UK, for example, for chronic liver disease and cirrhosis and liver cancer. So it is serious. Now, as I said, most people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease may not progress to any more dangerous liver damage. Thank God. But an important minority do progress to other forms of liver damage, the inflammation I talked about, and cirrhosis. And even if you have fatty liver disease and you're not progressing on to other kinds of liver damage, you are at increased risk for cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. So the liver then makes fat when it is faced with an excess of sugar, whether that sugar be glucose from starch or fructose from fructose sources, sucrose, table sugar, sweet fruits, and most dangerously, high fructose corn syrup present in a variety of commercial and fast food products, and people buy and consume without reading the label. All right, now, how can we reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? It is important to reverse it because even though it may not progress to further liver damage in the majority, it does in a minority, but even though it doesn't in a majority, it still increases the risk in that majority for diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and chronic kidney disease. The thing is, because of childhood obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is also being found in children and young people in the 20s and 30s, obese and fatty liver disease. And it will lead to diabetes type 2, hypertension, chronic kidney disease if not corrected. I told you already that Professor Roy Taylor from Newcastle upon Tyne and other researchers in the USA have shown that fatty liver will sooner or later increase the risk for excess fat in the pancreas. And when there's excess fat in the liver and pancreas, then it is only a matter of time before type 2 diabetes occurs. So if a person is not diabetic and have a fatty liver, that will increase the chances of them becoming diabetic in a matter of years. So a fatty liver should not be taken lightly. It should be reversed. Now, how is it diagnosed? Well, sometimes it has symptoms. A person may feel fatigue and tired and energy less, but that is a non-specific symptom. A lot of people complain of tiredness for other reasons, sometimes for no reason. So you have to check the thyroid, have to give them a full check. But sometimes on a routine check for what we call liver function tests, the results may come back showing that certain enzymes of the liver that come into the blood and are present in the blood at a normal level, for example, the aminotransferases are usually present in the blood from the liver at a level of no more than 35 to 40 international units per liter. If those liver enzymes are elevated in the blood, that raises a red flag to look more carefully. But more diagnostically, doing an ultrasound of the abdomen can pick up extra fat in the liver. When an ultrasound picks up fat in the liver, there's a lot of fat. In Newcastle upon Tyne University, Professor Taylor and his co-workers developed an MRI technique for detecting even smaller amounts of fat that may not be detected by the ultrasound, but still significant fat in the liver. So an ultrasound can show excess fat in the liver. It may be brought to light by abnormal liver function tests. Sometimes patients with excess fat in the liver get pain in the gallbladder area, the right upper quadrant of the abdomen where the liver is. People with fat in the liver are also more prone to have precipitation of cholesterol stones in the gallbladder and gallbladder disease. So we see a lot of fat young people in the 20s and 30s, young people, too much fat, fatty liver, fatty pancreas, they're on their way to diabetes type 2, they're already pre-diabetic or in metabolic syndrome. So from 1980 to now, that prevalence has grown from when it was first introduced to a global average prevalence of 25%, with the Caribbean and Latin America having higher than the global average. Serious. The thing is, it was shown already by studies here in the Caribbean that in the 1950s and 60s, our Caribbean health indices were better than those for Latin America and South America. Now we are behind them, we are worse than them. Only shows how we have copied a modern way of eating and eating too much of the wrong thing and piling on the weight. Okay, so how would we reduce non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver? As I said, 3 stages. If it is just fat in the liver, not a particular problem in terms of liver disease yet, but it increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, chronic kidney disease. If it moves on to inflammation, well, now, although that occurs in a minority, it is going to be indicating more serious trouble. That inflammation can eventually, these things take years to develop, can eventually cause scarring, fibrosis, distortion of the beautiful liver architecture. If you look at the liver under the microscope, it is beautifully architectured by infinite wisdom. Beautiful. And when that architecture is distorted, you're going to get obstruction to the bile flow, obstruction to the blood flow. The liver has 2 blood supplies. All the food we digest and absorb has to first come to the liver by the portal vein, which drains the gut and comes to the liver. The liver also receives an arterial blood supply via the hepatic artery of the aorta. And because everything we eat, whatever we take, medications, whatever we eat, is going to come to the liver first for screening and detoxification and metabolism. The liver is the metabolic guardian of the body. It is the major detoxification organ of the body, and having a healthy liver is very important. Because whatever you eat and it is digested and absorbed, the portal vein will drain it from the gut and take it straight to the liver first. So having a healthy liver, the liver performs so many functions in the body. It makes the serum proteins like serum albumin, which is so important for keeping the correct fluid balance within the capillaries. If your liver can't make albumin and your serum albumin drops, the average is 40 grams per liter, drops below 30, 28, you begin to get swelling. It drops below 25, you swell up like a balloon. That is called ascites and anasarca. The liver makes the clotting factors. The liver makes stores glycogen. The liver, of course, is the major detoxifier of the amino groups from amino acids from proteins, preventing the formation of ammonia by forming urea. Ammonia would kill us. The liver converts it to urea, which the kidney puts out in the urine. That was discovered by Professor Krebs in Sheffield University in Germany before he fled Hitler and went to England. So the liver is a powerfully important organ, and it must be kept in good health. When it deteriorates, it affects every other organ system. Now, so if fat is accumulating in the liver, how can we reverse it? Well, we have, first of all, solid evidence-based steps to reduce it. And then there are other steps with not as solid research evidence behind them. So let's look at the ones that are solidly evidence-based. One, if you have a fatty liver and you are obese, research has shown that if you lose the excess fat, especially abdominal fat, you can reverse the non-alcoholic fatty liver. Because being obese, and especially if a lot of that fat is in the belly area, the visceral area, abdominal obesity, that is a major cause of fatty liver, and getting rid of that abdominal fat and overall fat is the best way to reverse fatty liver, according to research and epidemiology. That's number one. So losing the excess fat in your body will also cause the liver to lose the excess fat. Good. Number two, avoid things that we know can be injurious to the liver, even if they're not the cause. Tobacco should be avoided, alcohol should be avoided, and we have to be careful of toxins we take in. So eating as pure a diet and as organic a diet as we can is best. Now, the research also shows that avoiding refined processed carbohydrates and refined processed meats, refined processed animal products, those two should be avoided because they are also linked with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and eliminating them will help reverse. The carbohydrates we should eat are the whole natural carbohydrates, what we call here in the Caribbean ground provisions, which are packed with fiber, are digested more slowly than refined junk, and do not cause insulin spikes. But even so, we should be moderate with the starches and try not to go above 40%, as was shown in a recent study I quoted several months ago. And if you are obese and want to lose weight, you may even have to be lower in the carbohydrates until the weight approaches normal. Another thing to avoid is sugars. Avoiding sugars. And people who are obese and who have a fatty liver may have to also avoid sweet fruits and concentrate on the green leafy vegetables, because the research is showing that the green leafy vegetables and the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, for example, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, and all the green leafy vegetables are wonderfully good for reversing fatty liver disease. So lots of veg, and the low glycemic veg, the green leafy vegetables, the cruciferous vegetables, the green leafy vegetables, very good for reversing fatty liver disease. But avoiding the sweet fruits, especially if you're obese and have a fatty liver problem, you may have to avoid the fruits until you come back to normal because of the high fructose content if you are fighting fatty liver. So vegetables and the green leafy vegetables have been shown to contribute to reversal. Losing fat, losing weight will contribute to reversal. Cutting out the junk foods and the refined processed carbohydrates will help to reverse, and avoiding sugar will help to reverse. And reading your labels carefully, when you see high fructose corn syrup, put it back on the shelf. So sugar, and a lot of people still use too much sugar. Put a lot of sugar. The sugar we use, of course, is sucrose, cane sugar, and that is half glucose and half fructose, speaking simply for you. And even when we sweeten things with raisins, for example, raisins are also quite high in fructose. So if you're fighting obesity and a fatty liver, you have to watch that as well. So those are the steps supported by solid evidence. Reduce your body fat, come down to your BMI that is normal, 22, 23 would be ideal. Remember, if you look at your height, if suppose you're 5'6", for the first 5 feet, we allocate 100 pounds. For every inch thereafter, 5 pounds. So a person who is 5'6", the ideal body weight is 130 pounds. Anything over that is excess fat, which will jeopardize the entire metabolism, including the liver. If you're 5'6", your ideal weight is 130. If you're a man more muscular, you'll be allowed for the increase in musculature. But we see a lot of people 5'2", which means the ideal body weight is 110, 5'2", and they're coming in at 140, 150, 160. And when you tell them about coming down to the ideal weight, they begin to ask how they would look and what people would say. They're not thinking about the liver, they're thinking about what people would say and how they would look. No regard at all for the heart, the blood vessels, liver, or kidney, how they would look and what people would say. I remember telling a lady the other day, I said, well, you have a picture of when you were 110? She said, yes. And how many years ago that was? She said that was quite a few years ago. And so I said, how you felt about it? And she said, I felt good. And nobody said anything. I said, so why you now think that going back to that ideal, perfect position would want to cause you to worry about what people would think and how you would look? She said, you know something, I never thought of that. I said, this is a matter of what people think and how you would look. It's a matter of safeguarding your health. Because when you come down with diabetes and chronic kidney disease, the same people who would comment on how you look will comment on how sick you have become. So people allow a lot of factors to impact on their need to come to an ideal body weight, which can be arrived at not merely by exercise, but by calorie restriction, avoiding sugar, reducing carbs, avoiding dangerous fats that become now to the fats. The research has also clearly shown that avoiding trans fats, so read your labels. When you see partially hydrogenated oils, don't look at it. And of course, also frying in cheap oils. The cheap omega-6 oils, canola and corn and soya oil, and those oils should be avoided. Most of the researchers are saying cut those oils out. Use extra virgin olive oil, but try to avoid the excessive frying altogether. Some researchers say if you don't have a cholesterol problem or an allergic problem, the medium chain oils like coconut can be helpful in this area as well. But too many people use a lot of cheap oils to fry in and do a lot of frying and a lot of greasy, oily stuff, and that contributes to fatty liver. So you have to avoid the sugar. You have to avoid the cheap vegetable oils. You have to cut out the trans fats. You have to reduce the carbs and certainly avoid refined processed carbs and refined processed meats. You have to eat less and exercise more. Use a lot more green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables. Get the body weight to what it should be. That is ideal. If you're 5 foot X inches, your ideal body weight should be 100 plus 5X. So calculate, know your height and calculate what your ideal weight should be and aim there by healthy eating and exercise. Well, Professor J. Song Fung from Canada, he is the main, he's a nephrologist and endocrinologist. He's the main pusher for the role of cutting out your sugars, reducing the carbs to a healthy position with healthy carbs, and even lower if you have an urgent need to get the weight off, and cutting out the dangerous fats, and intermittent fasting, 2 meals a day, and stick to it, and sometimes a day or two of fasting a week. Because fasting has been shown also by solid evidence, intermittent fasting and whole day fasting every now and then, to be very instrumental in reversing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So far we've looked at the evidence, solid evidence-backed steps. Let's look at them again. Avoid the sugars, especially high fructose corn syrup and high fructose containing things. And that may include cutting out some of the sweet fruits if you have the problem or want to reverse it. Avoiding refined processed carbs and refined processed meats. Eating whole food natural. Eating a lot of green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables. And the fasting, intermittent fasting, exercise, all of those very important. And reading your labels, cutting out the cheap fats and the cheap oils and the excessive frying. And those cheap oils are useless. They are rich in omega-6 and triggers inflammation. All right, now we come to other steps which do not have the same level of scientific evidence as what I just went through. So there's no substitute for losing excess fat, for eating less carbohydrates, for avoiding sugar, for avoiding the cheap oils, for using an abundance of green leafy vegetables, for fasting and intermittent fasting, for eating fewer calories and exercising more. All of those are solidly backed by scientific evidence as foolproof steps to reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and to reverse obesity. And they can even reverse diabetes type 2, as Professor Roy Taylor in England and Jason Faw in Canada and others there in the USA are actively doing every day for people who are committed to the program. So those are the solid evidence-based steps. No controversy about them. The other steps now I'm going to mention have less evidence, but some of them quite strong evidence. But you can't substitute what I just said with anything else. Get the fat off. Cut out the sugars. Read your labels and avoid high fructose corn syrup. Follow an intermittent fast program and fast a couple days a week. Bring your weight to the ideal. These are eat an abundance of green leafy vegetables. Okay, let's come now to the other steps that have less satisfactory evidence according to those who are pure for evidence, but some of the evidence is quite strong still. First of all, the evidence is increasing and it will become stronger for good gut health. You see, since all that you eat must be digested in the small intestine, absorbed, and goes straight to the liver via the portal vein, research is showing with a buildup of increasing evidence that if the gut bacteria are healthy, then the gut bacteria will be helping the intestinal immunity and the intestinal toxic level to be less. So you have a cleaner flow in the portal vein to the liver if you have good gut bacteria, probiotics, the microbiome, and you keep the gut bacteria healthy by again using green leafy vegetables and high fiber vegetables and cutting out the processed carbs and the processed meats. So good healthy gut bacteria help to sustain a good healthy liver. And the evidence for that is going to get stronger. Another thing is certain particular articles of diet now are being shown, the evidence is increasing. We already mentioned vegetables and green leafy vegetables and the cruciferous vegetables. The evidence there is absolutely bang on. But now, evidence is showing that avocado pears, eating avocado pears, that is very healthy for the liver. The kinds of fat in avocado and the other antioxidants and molecules in it, very good for the liver. Walnuts, omega-3, very good for the liver. Again, so those are two fats, avocado and walnuts, very good for the liver. Another molecule that is very good for the liver, but that comes down to the vegetables, lycopene from tomatoes and tomato products. Lycopene is a powerful protector of the liver. One mystery here, though, it has been shown that if a person is abusing alcohol, they're going to render the lycopene protection of the liver negative. So you can't be using lycopene to protect your liver and using alcohol to destroy it. It isn't going to work. But alcohol out of the picture, lycopene, powerful protector of the liver, helps to reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the evidence there will continue to increase. Now, our recent talk of the town, mushrooms. Mushrooms have been shown to be liver protective. The white button mushroom, the portobello, mushrooms contain molecules that protect the liver and help to reduce inflammation. And now we come to one that has evidence pretty strong, curcumin, turmeric. The turmeric curcumin reduces inflammation in the liver and helps to reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You can take it in supplement form, the root form, the powdered form, but it helps to protect the liver, and the evidence there is continuing to increase. Now, N-acetylcysteine helps the liver to make more glutathione and therefore protect itself from inflammation. NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And then the other herb that helps to protect the liver, milk thistle, containing a molecule called silymarin. A lot of evidence now is accumulating there that silymarin from milk thistle, which is an easily obtainable and cheap supplement, milk thistle, silymarin, is powerfully liver protective and helps to reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So curcumin from turmeric, and acetylcysteine, which we've been talking a lot about in the COVID era for lung protection and so on, and milk thistle, silymarin, powerful liver protection. Even if you have the fatty liver disease, it will help prevent progress on to inflammation or scarring, and then with a healthy change of lifestyle helps to reverse. But nothing can substitute for the lifestyle change. Get the fat off. Cut out refined processed carbs, refined processed meats and sugars, Eat an abundance of green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables. Follow an intermittent fasting program. Fast a couple days a week. Exercise consistently. Eat healthy and natural. This is the evidence, the solid evidence base for reversing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And now the others we're adding: curcumin from turmeric, N-acetylcysteine, milk thistles, silymarin. We mentioned probiotics already, omega-3. Now, there's been an association between vitamin D and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We don't know if the association is causative or just an association, but certainly it wouldn't harm if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in getting your vitamin D level to where it should be. Now, increasing evidence for this one: grape seed extract with the polyphenols helps to prevent liver damage. Grape seed extract, a cheap, safe supplement available in health food stores and very good for the liver, very good to help the veins and the circulation in the brain. Grape seed extract. I didn't say grape seed oil, I said grape seed extract. Sometimes when you say grape seed extract, people just transfer in their mind and talk about oil. Grape seed extract comes in capsule form, powerfully antioxidant, liver protective, multi-organ protective as well. High fiber intake, we mentioned. So because non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is on the increase all around the world and has increased from virtually being unknown in 1980 when the first case was reported to being now at a global prevalence of 25% today in 2021, and with the Caribbean and Latin America above the global average. And a lot of people would have a fatty liver and don't know unless they get an ultrasound for something else and it shows it. And although most people with a fatty liver are not going to progress to any further liver damage, thank God, a minority, however, will do that. Yet, if you have a fatty liver, even though you may not progress to further liver damage, you have an increased risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and chronic kidney disease. So a fatty liver is not something you want to ignore. You want to reverse it. And the best way to reverse it is to bring your body mass index to where it should be. Bring your weight to where it should be ideally. A rough way to do that, of course, people who lift weights and have muscles, they can't use the body mass index. They have to use the waist circumference. You want a narrow waist circumference. And we use the rule: if you're 5 foot X inches, 5 foot 4 inches, for example, 100 pounds for the first 5 feet, and 5 pounds for every inch thereafter. So 5 foot 4, your ideal weight is 120. If you're 160, that is 40 pounds excess fat. It is going to impact on the liver. So the important lesson here is that the research is all showing that you should aim to come to your ideal body weight, cutting out the sugars, cutting out the refined processed carbs and junk foods and fast foods and French fries and chips and all that rubbish, eating whole food whole, an abundance of green leafy vegetables and broccoli and cruciferous vegetables. If you have a fatty liver problem, you may even have to avoid the sweet fruit because that's fructose, and cut out sugars completely and concentrate on your green leafy veg until you come to ideal, and then you can include fruit again. And exercise is critical. Of course, no alcohol, no tobacco. And then the value of curcumin from turmeric, N-acetylcysteine, milk thistle, silymarin, a good probiotic to help the gut flora, a high fiber diet. But certainly sugar must be out, refined processed carbs must be out, and abundance of green leafy vegetables. So when you understand that in America in 2020, 42,000 cases of liver cancer were diagnosed, and 14% of those were accounted for by fatty liver. The most, of course, would have been accounted for by alcohol abuse and post-viral issues and toxins like the aflatoxin in peanuts that carry that fungus. But non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is continuing to increase and is now, according to a UK report I have here, it is in the UK. Let me just give this UK update. In the UK, listen to this report from the UK, the National Health Service in the UK. A healthy liver should contain little or no fat. It is estimated that up to 1 in every 3 people in the UK has early stage of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. 1 in 3 has the early stages. And early stage non-alcoholic fatty liver disease may be harmless in terms of progressing on to cause any liver problem, but in some people, as we said, it can progress on to cirrhosis or liver cancer. And having high levels of fat in the liver is associated with an increased risk of diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic kidney disease, and cardiovascular disease. So it is important then that we have touched this topic, and people who are diabetic have to be on their watch for it. People who are obese, people who have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, people who have the metabolic syndrome, and the older you get, the greater the risk, and people who smoke. So our principles of health reform: no tobacco, no alcohol, plenty of green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables, no sugar, healthy starches, but in moderation. 40% is the ideal mark. Avoiding the cheap vegetable oils to fry in, waste of time. The importance of walnuts and flax and avocado for omega-3 and liver protection. Curcumin from turmeric, silymarin from milk thistle. But nothing can beat the getting the fat off and a healthy diet and exercising and bring your body weight to where it should be to get the fat out of the liver completely. Very, very important indeed. So it is crucial that we follow these principles and that we therefore understand that a fatty liver is not anything that we can play with, because it increases the risk of a whole range of problems, and it can progress on to more serious liver disease. People who end up with cirrhosis or liver failure or may have to get liver transplants in those big countries where it is available, and that is serious. So to summarize: lose weight, bring your body weight to where it should be, eat a healthy diet, exercise regularly, stop smoking, no alcohol, and then remember the value of the green leafy vegetables and the other things I mentioned that will certainly help the liver. Just look at them again: lycopene, mushrooms, omega-3, avocado, good gut health, curcumin, NAC, milk thistle, probiotics, omega-3, vitamin D. But very important to get the extra fat off the body, especially the belly fat, which is the one that puts the liver at risk for accumulating fat. Okay, so we've looked this evening at non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, an increasing global problem, and an increasing problem not only for the liver itself, but for the cardiovascular system, and increasing the risk of diabetes and heart disease and chronic kidney disease. Okay, in the last few minutes, any questions or comments?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening and pleasant Sabbath to yourself and everybody listening. We know that frying is not the best way to cook food, but for those persons who feel that they must fry. I mean, there's soybean oil, corn oil, grapeseed oil, olive oil, coconut oil, and so on. If you must fry, which oil would you recommend choosing? That's
Grapeseed oil, organic grapeseed oil will be the best to fry in.
oh,
Olive oil, some people say you can fry in it, but not to carry the temperature excessively, but that is hard to deal with. And most experts say you should really avoid frying altogether. Frying is not healthy, but people like frying. So if you're going to like frying, grapeseed oil is the best. Olive oil, some experts say you can fry in it, but others say they don't want the temperature going up.
okay. So if you must fry, you're suggesting that the grapeseed oil would be
The
the best
best,
choice.
yes.
Yeah, another question. I've heard that over supplementation with some vitamins can actually cause liver damage. For example, vitamin A. Could you comment on that? And also, the last question would be, is there any cure per se for cirrhosis of the liver?
The fat-soluble vitamins are stored in the liver, and if in excess, like vitamin A, taking more than 50,000 units of vitamin A day for more than a few weeks can lead to liver injury. So yes, that should be avoided. Excess vitamin A, but that is uncommon unless a person doesn't know what they're doing. And the last question you asked was, repeat that.
If there's any cure per se for cirrhosis of the liver?
Not really, not really. Cirrhosis of the liver is an irreversible and progressive condition that ends in liver failure. The speed of its progression can be delayed by good treatment and good diet and a change and so on. But once it has reached that point, it is going to be progressively downhill. So you want to prevent the liver from reaching the stage of cirrhosis, because cirrhosis is inflammation, fibrosis, liver cell death, scarring, and distortion of the architecture, which will cause trouble.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Elder Douglas,
Yes.
there's a question in the chat from someone on YouTube.
Well, go ahead, read it for me.
It says, what function does the spleen play in collaboration with the liver? Can a person live efficiently without a spleen? And does fat affect the spleen?
The spleen is part of what we call the lymphoreticular system. It plays a very important role in removing abnormal red blood cells. So persons with sickle cell and so on, the spleen is enlarged because it doesn't tolerate any defect in the red blood cells. The spleen also becomes enlarged in the leukemias and the lymphomas, the blood cancers. The spleen is also important in helping the immune system to be in tip-top shape. So people who have had to have the spleen removed, for example, a spleen for an accident and so on, they have to be on antibiotics, special antibiotic injections or tablets to prevent certain kinds of bacterial infection because of the role the spleen plays in keeping the immune system in tip-top shape, especially against gram-negative bacteria. But no, in terms of fatty accumulation and other metabolic issues, no, the spleen isn't involved like the liver. The spleen plays a specific role in the immune system and the hemopoietic system, the lymphoreticular system, lymph nodes, bone marrow, and so on, and white blood cells and red blood cells. And you can live without a spleen, but you have to have vigilance against gram-negative infections and antibiotic prophylaxis. And the spleen is only taken out if it is ruptured in trauma. Otherwise, the person would bleed to death. And it becomes enlarged in the leukemias and the lymphomas and in hemolytic anemias when it is trying to clear abnormal red blood cells. Okay, so if no other questions, our time is up. So take care of your liver. Our health message, of course, is always stress no alcohol, no tobacco, plenty of vegetables. And if you are active and slim and not overweight, fruits have their place, of course. If you have a fatty liver problem and an obese problem, you may have to forego sweet fruits until you come to your ideal body weight. But the most important approach for reversing a fatty liver is to come to your ideal body weight and to eat healthy. And you may not even know you have a fatty liver unless you get an ultrasound that shows it. But because of the prevalence of obesity in our world and pre-diabetes and diabetes, a lot of people have a fatty liver and that can cause trouble. Okay, well, that is our talk for this evening. We focused on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, how to prevent, how to reverse, and it ties in with the overall importance of the health message, and the aim is to keep our body weight as near the ideal as possible and to protect that very important organ of the liver. So I thank you. That ends our recording. Thank you very much. And we will close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our sharing in health and the importance of protecting the liver and the reversing of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Be with us for the rest of the day in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, thank you.